Hello there, and welcome into another episode of the Fasting Guy podcast. I am the Fasting Guy. Most people just call me Brett. I'm a guy that spends at least 25 hours a week doing research on weight loss and metabolic health. I look at all the latest papers, literature, the latest studies. I've also lived a life of obesity, weight loss failure, and weight loss success. I've lost 60 pounds and failed due to an injury. I lost 80 pounds and failed due to a hospital stay. I lost 125 pounds and then failed due to debilitating depression and grief. And now I'm losing weight more effectively than I ever did before. My goal is to give you research, my personal experience, and the motivation you need to achieve your health and weight loss goals. 5 huge myths about fasting and intermittent fasting busted. We're going to jump into the truth. We're going to jump into some benefits. We're going to jump into some just out and out lies, and we're just going to talk about fasting. Now, before we begin, and I've changed the name of the podcast to the Fasting Guy Podcast. We did that a couple months ago because fasting is a huge focus in my life. I feel when you live a life of excess like I did, then you really need to counteract that with a life that is the opposite of excess. When you spend all day, every day eating, you need to balance that out when you on your path back to health with, many days of not eating. And I think this is true, whether you are 30 pounds overweight or 130 pounds overweight. That being said, it's not just about the fasting, it's about what you eat. Obviously, it's also about how much you eat. Now, fasting puts a self-regulator on that works very well. But I consider fasting just one of the tools in my weight loss and health journey toolbox. And not just a tool, but multiple tools. You have extended fast, you have intermittent fast that range from, 16 hours is about the minimum that I ever do. I do a lot of 18 hour, 20 hour, 23 hours, 36 to 40 hours, which is alternate day, 48 hours, 72s, and some 96s. I haven't done a fast longer than 96 in quite some time. And I think that's a pretty good goal to shoot for, maybe once a month or something, depending on how overweight you are. With all that being said, here we go. We're going to jump right into fasting with the biggest of all fasting myths. I hear it. People that are trying it, they reach out to me, tell me they hear it. It's frustrating. Fasting is starvation. You're starving yourself. Why you want to starve yourself? Well, starving actually has a pretty well-defined set of parameters. It's not just not eating. As a matter of fact, not eating doesn't have anything to do with it at all. The way you know that you've reached the point of starvation, and I know this all too well from watching my mom's final 6 months of decline. Probably 8 months. Last 8 to 9 months of decline until she passed away from ovarian cancer. My mom did at some point begin starving, but now, before that, my mom fasted. She fasted before chemo, and she didn't really do this too much until later in the journey, and we learned this information, and I can just tell you, it was tremendous for her. She would fast for how, depending on how much she was up for doing, she would fast for between 24 and 48 hours before she would get her chemo, and then she would shoot for another 24 to 48 after her chemo. And boy, talk about wiping out most to all of those chemo side effects. It was just remarkable. So, anyway, that's not the point. The point is later in her journey, when she had depleted her body of body fat, her body started feeding on the protein. It started leaching nutrients and minerals and calories from protein and bone. And my mom actually lost so much muscle mass in her legs that she actually wasn't able to walk for the last 6 weeks she was alive. They did do physical therapy for a while, and then she became so unhealthy that my mom was so determined to press through and get back on her feet. That's just how my mom was. My mom was talking right up until the last conversation I had with her a couple of days before she died. She was talking about beating it coming out of it, and this isn't the end. And, that was how my mom was. And she pushed for physical therapists to come by every day when she was hospitalized, and me and the doctors. And most people that knew what we knew she was never making it out of the hospital. But my mom didn't buy into that and didn't believe into that. At some point, she became less lucid, and she became where she slept most of the time and was out of it most of the time. So she wasn't pushing for physical therapy anymore. Nevertheless, I saw what starvation is like. My mom starved. If you're overweight and you have body fat, especially extra body fat, you will not starve by not eating. You aren't starving until your body has so little body fat left that it begins ravaging your lean muscles, tissue, sinew, and other type tissue to survive. That is starvation. Just take, for example, that the average person has about 2,000 calories worth of glucose or glycogen stores in their liver and muscle. That'll easily get most people through a day right off the bat. And then for this isn't exactly right, but it's kind of an estimate. It's kind of right. It's right enough we can use it as an example. For every pound of fat that you have stored on your body, that's 3,500 calories. So even if you just have 10 extra pounds of fat, that's 35,000 calories. That's enough to get you through, it depends on how big you are and how many calories you're burning every day, but it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 days or so, just off 10 pounds of extra fat. If you got 100 pounds of extra fat, you ain't hitting starvation levels for a long, long time. Now, that doesn't mean you can't wind up being depleted in some things if you fast a really long time, which is not, by no means am I even recommending that. You need to do your study. You need to see what's best for you. You need to come up with a plan. You need to talk with a professional and a physician and all these things. But like I said, I'm shooting for a max of about 4 days. But I know people that have fasted a long time. The fasting fat man on YouTube, I think he fasted 150 days or some crazy number. You have the guy from back in the whatever it was, the 60s that had the record for the longest fast at like 384 days or something. And the biggest issues that they tend to run into is electrolytes. And so it's possible to become depleted in electrolytes. That's an easy fix. A little salt, a little magnesium, a little potassium, maybe a little calcium, maybe a little baking soda. Just depends on what formula you come up with. I'm not getting into that. But you easily offset that. You're just not going to starve. Fasting is the single most efficient way to put into action the mechanism that our bodies was created to use. Our bodies were designed to keep us alive by storing excess energy in the form of fat that we could access later in times of famine. And it's a beautiful design when you have periods of famine. But in most industrialized nations, there is no more famine. There's no periods of famine. We just don't experience it. We only experience feasting. 12 to 14 to 16 hours a day, people putting food in their mouth. There's just never a break from it. And so you got to bring the famine back in to offset the feasting. And if you do that correctly, your body will do things it's designed to do, and you can shed fat from your body at a pretty remarkable rate. So, fasting is not starving. It doesn't meet the definition nor the qualifications to be starving. If you have stored energy for your body to burn, it will burn the stored energy and not affect any of the rest of your body. It'll leave that alone. As a matter of fact, it has protective effects on the rest of your body. So number 2, specifically addressing intermittent fasting. One of the first steps anybody takes when they jump into intermittent fasting, you just stop eating breakfast. And that pretty much gets you to a 16-8, which I think is about the minimum anybody should do if you're going to try it. 16-8 is a good goal for a starting point. Now, it doesn't mean you can't start out with 12-12 and then, move to 14-10 and then move to 16-8. 16-8 should be your minimum goal to get you to a good level of fasting. That being said, for a lot of people, 12-12 would be a vast improvement. It just would. But the problem you're going to run into this from your friends and people that presumably care about you is that this old notion, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. gives you energy, and it boosts your metabolism, and you're just gonna have a better day, and you're gonna think better. And all that is, not only is it wrong, it's just the opposite. The exact opposite is true. You're gonna wake up with more energy, and you're not gonna have that sluggish, I just ate a meal effect happen. Your brain is gonna operate at ultimately high levels. Your body's gonna be searing through fat for the final few hours before you eat if you wait 16 hours. Breakfast doesn't mean something you eat in the morning. Breakfast means this is the meal that is breaking my fast. It doesn't have a time of day associated with it. People who sell food to you on TV invented the word breakfast. Well, they didn't invent the word breakfast. They caused the word breakfast to be something that happens early in the morning. And it's just not true. You can break your fast at 11, you can break it at noon, you can break it at 2, you can break it at 4. Break fast is when you decide to break your fast. And that's all it is. And I would submit to you that amazing things happen if you can push through and just skip breakfast most of the time. Now, there are some studies out there. Matter of fact, just saw one that's relatively new a few weeks ago. I may actually even do a podcast on it, I'm not sure. But it showed that weight loss and improvement in health markers actually happened better when people chose to eat breakfast and lunch and sacrifice dinner. So if you want to try that, that's fine. I just find for most people, to make intermittent fasting a part of their life that they can live with forever and be happy, since eating is such a social thing, and social eating usually happens at dinner, most people choose to just leave breakfast off, so you get to keep that aspect of dinner. All right, the third point is people will say, well, I can never fast. I just can't handle the hunger. Boy, that extreme hunger, that's just too much for me. There's just no way I could do that. And the truth of the matter is that there just really isn't an issue with hunger. You would think there would be an issue with hunger. And granted, when you first start out at it, if you've been eating from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, the first time you try to skip breakfast, yeah, you're going to feel a little hungry. Grellin's going to kick in. Ghrelin is largely based off of habitual eating. So if you normally eat at 7, you're going to get this little nudge from ghrelin at 7 that says you're hungry. And you're going to have to power through it. It may last 10 minutes, may last 20 minutes. Several ways to deal with it. Water is one. Taking a little short walk is one. But here's the thing. Fasting is like a muscle. And the more you exercise it and the more you implement it, the better you get at it. The better you are at recognizing real hunger versus cravings. And there's a huge difference. People are rarely hungry, but people crave food all the time and think it's hunger. And you never really realize that until you start fasting. And you start paying attention to, oh, so this is what real hunger feels like. It's nothing like what I thought was hunger. Hunger really is more about habit than anything. Getting the spikes at time you'd normally eat of hormones like ghrelin. As you break those habits, as you start working towards becoming a person who fasts, hunger really becomes a minor thing. Excuse me. And I'll even go so far as to say, the longer you fast, the less hungry you are. Now, I've got to where, really 4 days is about the max that I shoot for in a month if I'm going to try a longer fast. Most of my fasts tend to be in the 36 to 48 hour range. Some 72s occasionally and some 96s occasionally. But once you get through that 4th day is when you actually really hit the sweet spot to where your ketone levels are so high, you are just using your body fat as fuel, producing ketone bodies in such an efficient way. Your mind becomes clear. You have this crazy, insane amount of energy that you can't describe. And hunger really is, for most people, the vast majority of people, the last thing on your mind once you get deeper into a fast. It's not the longer you go, the hungrier you get. It's just not like that. It just doesn't work like that. The longer you go, the less hungry you get. Now, hunger can cycle back in, and the longest I've ever fasted was 10 days. But now, I recall having hunger cycle back in on day, I think it was day 8 maybe, and then it kind of went away. But I've talked to other people who've had this phenomenon where hunger will cycle back in at, day 11. It might cycle back in at day 13. But for the vast majority of the time, they're just not hungry, not experiencing hunger. So this whole lie that you just can't handle the extreme hunger that's going to get worse and worse and worse, it just doesn't happen like that. That's just not how it happens. Initially, you will have to get through some hunger because you're just not used to ever fasting. But the more you try at it, the more you work at it, the more you begin to train your brain, train your body to access stored fuel. The more efficient it gets at accessing stored fuel, the less it'll bug you about wanting you to eat. And you'll also become a person who recognizes real hunger much better. And this next one kind of ties into that. As people like, I can't fast because I don't want to be tired. I'll just be tired, exhausted all the time, and I don't have any energy. I got to keep my energy up. And there's just nothing to that. Look, you can get 2,500 calories a day by putting it in your mouth and chewing up and swallowing it. Or you can get 2,500 calories a day by not putting anything in your mouth and your body being accustomed to just switching right over to burning your fat stores, and it'll burn 2,500 calories of your fat stores. Food is food. Your body, it didn't really distinguish between the two. Now, if it has an overabundance coming in through the mouth, it's going to not access that that's stored, and it's going to shuttle all the excess it can into what's stored, because that's just what it's designed to do. But if you stop what's coming in, and the more you do that, and the better your body gets at switching, it'll just switch more quickly and more easily. The more times you try it, the better you get at it, the more you do it, the more you attempt, your 16s, your 18s, your 20s and 4s, your 23s and 1s, your 48s, whatever. The more you work at this, the more adept your body will become at just flipping the switch and going, all right, I don't care that they're not putting anything in their mouth. We're fine. We have tons of energy. We're going to consume it. We're going to burn it. We're going to run off ketones. Ketones, by the way, they keep you super focused, and the energy level is quite remarkable for the most part. Your body, first of all, has glycogen stores to burn through. So if you're a person that ate a lot of food yesterday and last night, and then you woke up today and decided to fast, you still got tons of that glycogen storage and sugar and stuff in your liver and muscles and tissues that it's got to burn through, really, before it ever thinks about getting to fat. And then when you get to fat, if you're overweight, you just got tons of food for your body to eat. It's not a deal. It's just not a big deal. The more you practice fasting, the quicker your body will switch to accessing the stored energy. And in fact, most people really do have more energy on when they fast. And this is especially true once you get to around day 3, day 4, day 5. Your energy levels will really peak at a really high level. It's quite remarkable. It's so much so that it'll be hard to sleep. And that's one of the reasons I kind of decided, hey, I don't know that I'm going to go for really 5 and 6 and 7 day fasts anymore. Because around day 4 and after, my energy level is just so high, it's just impossible to sleep. Like, I'm up all night and I just can't sleep. And now I don't feel super exhausted the next day, but it's just not healthy to not sleep. That is true. And I find that most people that start fasting learn that this is true. So you don't have to worry about energy. And the very last thing is this is the thing you see experts say. Experts always talk about, well, you got to do a lifestyle change. This is something you got to do for life. It's something you got to always be able to do. Look, the body is designed to fast. It's built that way. Whether you have a God-centric belief from a creation standpoint, or whether you have a evolution by a natural selection standpoint, either way, this body that we inhabit is designed to function properly, feasting and fasting. Fasting is a part of the metabolic process. It's designed to fast, and it can do it well if you'll let it. Matter of fact, it wants to fast. It thrives when you give it alternate periods of feasting and fasting. This is something that's really hard to comprehend. Your body thrives. It works best. Not best when you always have food, as you would think, as we've been told, as we've been indoctrinated. But no, and the science is confirming this. Nobel Prize winner, just recently, it was 2016, I think, on Nobel Prize winner, work and stuff on autophagy. This is stuff we're learning now, and the science is backing it up. If you're always in a fed state and you're always eating, you're never having autophagy. Your body never gets to clean house. It's like you never doing spring cleaning at your house. It's like you never dusting the top of the ceiling fan blades. It's like you never dusting the tops of the shelves and the TV. The dust just accumulates and accumulates, and it just, next thing you know, it's swirling in your house and it's hard to breathe and bad things happen. Your body has a cleansing cycle, and autophagy is a big part of that. So old proteins and stuff and cells that don't work right anymore, that don't function correctly, your body will go in and chew those up and recycle them and create new tissue out of that. And then your body will come in and create new, healthy, shiny new cells to replace the old, dead, dysfunctional cells. It's called autophagy. It comes when you go without food. It comes when there's a lack of a nutrient trigger, a nutrient intake trigger. And you've got to stop eating long enough for that to happen. And, eating a snack at 10 o'clock at night, laying down and getting up at 6 the next morning and having breakfast, you never get anywhere near autophagy. Now, how long does it take? It's still hard to say. Nobody really knows for sure. But, hey, it's likely more than 16 hours. And if you eat a really ketogenic diet so that your body's kind of in a mimicked fasting state all the time anyway, you may can get in it some autophagy at 16 hours or whatever. Nevertheless, the point is, you got to get some fasting in if you want that part of your body's natural cycle to work. And there's lots of theories and some emerging evidence out there that this is what's leading to people dying from cancer. I remember when my mom first started her cancer journey, and I just dove into as much research I could find, and I found all these people that talked about, and very little papers out there, some literature but not much, about how cancer is something that comes up in a human's body all the time. Like, that's not something that just happens and you die from it. That from, maybe as early as your early 20s or whatever, you can start having, these cells or whatever start happening. But your body, when it's working right, comes in and deals with it and clears it up. You never know about it. But when you get older and your body's diseased and it isn't working correctly and you haven't taken care of it, and these cells start growing, your body can't deal with them, and that's when it becomes a problem and the body doesn't clean it up, and then it becomes a life-threatening problem, and you get people dying from cancer. And there's now more literature to support this idea than there was when my mom first started her cancer journey back in 2012. But fasting, feast and famine, is the way the body was designed to operate. It wants to fast. It thrives when you give it alternate periods of feasting and fasting. And once you ditch all these lies of the food industry, you'll see that a fasting regimen is actually enjoyable. You will become someone who enjoys doing it. And none of that, you'll feel bad when you don't do it. And I have a friend who is my fasting / exercising / get healthy / motivation person. And the one thing that we always go back and forth about is, like, some days we hate to break the fast. We're like, God, I know when I break this fast, I'm just not going to feel as good as I do right now, having been fasted, 36 hours or 40 hours or 48 hours. I just know I'm not going to feel this good. I'm not going to feel this light. I'm not going to feel this mobile. I'm not going to feel this agile. My brain is not going to have this level of clarity. Eating food is going to screw all that up. And it really does become a struggle to where you just are like, I don't want to break my fast. I remember I did this has been 2 years ago maybe or something. I was going to do a 7-day fast, and I got to day 7. And I texted her. I'm like, God, I don't want to stop. I feel too good. I said I was going to do 7 days, but I don't want to quit. My energy level's through the roof. My clarity of mind is just incredible. My focus is incredible. I feel like I'm accomplishing things left and right. And this feels too good. And that was actually one of those times I decided to go ahead and push it and went to 10 days or whatever. And then when you do eat, you're like, ugh. God, I just don't feel as good now. So, look, these are things you have to look forward to if you start implementing fasting. So, now you're not jumping out and doing a 10-day fast. You're not going to jump out the gate and do a 7-day fast, or even a 5 or a 4 or even a 3-day fast. And I'm not even suggesting that you should. But you do have to give your body some time for the other part of its mechanisms to work. The time when there has been no nutrient intake for an extended period of time. So these cleanup and recycling mechanisms can be triggered and kick in and work to keep you healthy in addition to the burning of the fat. The burning of the fat is probably the least of the beneficial things that happen. At the very least, it's equal with the other things. There's so many good things happening. So how do you get there? Well, I'm not going to make this a strategy podcast on how to start fasting, but I'll just give you a few lines to get you started. And that's if you find that you're one of those people that is eating 16 hours a day, I mean, obviously your first goal is to only eat 14 hours a day or only eat 12 hours a day. And so just take what time you eat breakfast is what I would do. If I'm this person that really, if you're a person that gets up, eat breakfast, and you eat all day right up until you crash at 10 o'clock at night, you're having a snack. I mean, you've got some work cut out for you. And so for you, I'd say you got to start small. I'd say see what time it is you eat breakfast. And let's say if you eat breakfast at 7 a.m., then you tell yourself, I'm done eating at 7 p.m. I'm going to go 12 and 12, and we'll split the day half and half. Half of the day it's going to be okay to eat. Half the day it's not going to be okay to eat. And I'm going to stick with that. And that includes drinking drinks. Can't tell you how many people I talk to that get confused about it. They're like, well, I haven't been eating anything. I'm like, yeah, but you're drinking Mountain Dews and Cokes. That's calories. You don't think of those as meals, but they're a meal. A Coke is a meal. A Sprite is a meal. Mountain Dew is a meal. No, it's water, black coffee, unsweetened tea, these type things. There's things you can have during your I'm not going to eat window. So, I mean, that's step one. You get the 12 hours down, and then, take you a little while to get comfortable. Then you move it to 14 hours where you don't eat. Then you move it to 16 where you don't eat. The next thing you know, it's a lot easier. And then you can go, hey, one day a week I'm going to shoot for this OMAD thing where I'm going to eat dinner, and I'm not going to eat again till dinner tomorrow. I'm going to make it 23 hours. And then you get where that's not hard. You're doing that once, 2 times a week, 3 days a week, whatever. And you're like, okay, we'll try this alternate day thing. We'll eat dinner today. We'll eat nothing tomorrow. And then I'll eat lunch the following day. And it'll be somewhere between 36 and 40 hours. That'll be phenomenal. You'll get there. But you just do it in steps. Just do it in steps. Be committed. And if you really want to make it easier, you got to get the carbs out, because the carbs is where the craving comes from. So I tell everybody that's trying fasting for the first time, hey, make sure that day that you eat before you start your fast, that lunch and dinner that day, make sure it's keto. Keep them carbs way less than 20 for that day. Keep your fat and protein high or whatever. And it's going to help you a lot with the cravings on that following day when you fast. All right, that wraps it up, guys. Hey, take a moment and leave us if you find our content beneficial and helpful, please take a moment, do me a huge favor, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That'd mean the world to me. 5-star review would make my day. Here's what it does, is it tells Apple, hey, when somebody's searching about fasting or keto or weight loss, here's a podcast that people enjoy and get something out of because they've rated it. So we'll recommend it to people searching for it. And it helps me get the word out to more people, which is my entire goal in life. So if you would do that, you would be my hero. If you'd like to consider being a patron, go to losewithmason.com. Check out the perks. Check out the benefits. They may be for you, may not be for you. And then follow us on social media. Fasting Guy Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I appreciate you listening so much. I wish you the best. If I can help you in some kind of way, let me know and I'll try. And we'll talk to you next time.